Okay, everybody, we are going to go over photosynthesis, which literally is life from light and air. So photosynthesis is how plants make their food that they will then later turn into ATP through cellular respiration. So we're just going to click through these things really quick. So remember, plants are autotrophs, and they're going to make their own energy from sunlight. Now, autotrophs include not only plants, but there are some photosynthetic protists and some photosynthetic bacteria as well. We are heterotrophs, and of course, we are dependent on the autotrophs because they initially provide us with the original amount of energy coming from the sun. Okay, so autotrophs and heterotrophs are connected. Now, down here on the bottom, this is the formula for photosynthesis. So this is what we're studying right now, and next week, this is what we'll be looking at. So up here is cellular respiration, which you can see is just the exact opposite of photosynthesis. But we're going to focus down here because that's what we're studying in this particular part of the unit. So the autotrophs are using photosynthesis. They are taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere that we have exhaled or breathed out, water, of course, that comes in from their roots in most cases, and then, of course, sunlight energy, and they're going to convert it into glucose and oxygen. This is just a little diagram showing us where the raw materials come from that we're going to use for photosynthesis. So we know that initially sunlight comes in and is captured by the leaves. There are many molecules of chlorophyll found in the chloroplast, which we'll talk about later. Then, of course, the carbon dioxide is going to come in from the bottoms of the leaves through things called stomates. Then water and nutrients come in from the roots. This is what a stomate looks like. So the oxygen that is released by the plant goes through this little structure, kind of looks like an eyeball, and the carbon dioxide comes in through the same structure. So this is a cross section of a leaf, and here's the stomata down here on the bottom, okay? Chloroplasts are the sites of photosynthesis. So remember I told you that when I think about a chloroplast, I think about, a giant green M&M. And since M&Ms have coatings on them, you can see that the chloroplast has its own membrane. But what's really important are the discs that are inside the chloroplast. And so to me, those are like the little mini M&Ms that are stacked up inside. And it's the shell or the membrane of the mini M&M or the thylakoid, which is what it really is, that really matters, okay? So each one of these little discs is a thylakoid. The whole stack we said was called granum or grana if you look at all of them. But the chlorophyll is going to be within these thylakoid membranes. This is just another picture of your chloroplast. It's just showing us, your stacks of thylakoids and whatnot, and really what's going to be going on here. Photosynthesis is carried out in two sets of reactions. The first big set of reactions is called the light reaction. We sometimes call it the light-dependent reaction because you have to have sunlight in order for this reaction to take place. What you're going to do here is take the sunlight and turn it into usable energy, which is ATP, and then NADPH. Okay? NADPH, this is the analogy we used in class. NADPH is a bank, a piggy bank, really, for electrons. And so that's what you see here, the little piggy bank, and this is the electron going in. When this bank is empty, it's just NADP. But when you put an electron in and the bank is full, that's NADPH, okay? And so the electrons that are in this bank plus the ATP is what we're going to use in the Calvin cycle, which we have really called the dark reaction, okay? So the dark reaction, Calvin cycle, light independent reaction, whatever you want to call it, this is the second part of photosynthesis. And this is where we're going to build the sugar, okay? So this diagram up here is actually on your test prep, I believe. So let's just take a look real quick because this is just a view of photosynthesis overall. So here we have the sunlight coming in. It is going into the light reaction. This sunlight is going to be used to make ATP and NADPH. An electron from a chlorophyll molecule is what's being stored here in the NADPH, okay? Because we've lost an electron here, so, I'll tell you my story in just a minute, but because we've lost the electron and put it in NADPH, we have to replace it with one from water. So water is added to the light reaction. It is split by enzymes. The electron is then used to replace this one that we're sending somewhere else. And then the byproduct or waste product is oxygen. So after we leave the light reactions, we come over here to the dark reaction, which is the Calvin cycle. You can see we're putting the ATP in, okay? We're putting the energy in, and then when we get the energy, remember we're left with ADP and P, right? Okay. Then we're going to put the electron in that was here in NADPH, and then when we put it into the Calvin cycle, then we're going to be left with NADP. Okay. Calvin is a building cycle, and we're building sugar. And so, when I see these arrows really going this way, I guess, I think of a great big mixing bowl, and I guess because my daughter bakes cookies and things all the time, this reminds me of what she's doing. When she goes to bake, she gets all of her ingredients out, and then she puts them over in the mixing bowl, and then, of course, she begins to mix everything up, and then what she gets out is, of course, a sugary, yummy treat, cookie, cake, or whatever she's baking. And so that's all we're doing here, except we're not using eggs and flour. We're using ATP, NADPH, and carbon dioxide. So we're going to add stuff from these two molecules to carbon dioxide to make our sugars. And so we're going to end up, this is showing a different molecule. It works a little bit different than this, but anyway, so just understand that we're definitely making sugar here. And that's really photosynthesis as a whole, okay? We're going to look a little bit at the light reaction. And, hold on, sorry, that was the wrong photo. The light reaction, remember we began the light reaction with Mrs. Photo, remember Miss Photo 2? And Miss Photo 2 and her daughter Electra, remember, lived together. Miss Photo 2 was a widow, so Electra came home to live with her. And Miss Photo 2, remember, she had a rule. And she told Electra that she could not go out into the sun because it would do all kinds of crazy things to her. But remember, Electra did it anyway, and she went out into the light, and Electra, who is our electron, she got really excited, and she went through these things here that you're seeing, and I know you don't understand what they are, but this is what we call the chain, and it's really an electron transport chain. And when Electra went through the chain, which remember we said was just like this factory where she was put to work against her will or whatever, and the factory sucked all of the energy out of Electra. And remember, that energy was used to make ATP. Okay, so all of Electra's energy went down here to make ATP. So here is our path of Electra. So now she's down on her luck. Remember, she's tired. She bumps into her friend who takes her in, and her friend's mom is named Mrs. Photo 1. And that's, remember, a photosystem is a blob of chlorophyll pigment. So Miss Photo 1 told Electra the same thing. Don't go out into the sun. But you can see that she did, and this time when Electra left and she ran off, she met NADP, which we said was Prince Charming, the man of her dreams, and when she married Prince Charming, they became NADPH. And so after we make the ATP and the NADPH, then we now have what we need to power the Calvin cycle, which is what we're calling the dark reaction, okay? So we'll go over here to, we'll talk about that later, over here to, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, never mind. So I thought the Calvin cycle was there, but it's not. let's look at a little animation. And unfortunately, this animation, I can only get it to work in Firefox. So I'm hoping that you 8th graders can get it to work on your Chromebook. If not, I'll be glad to show it to you when we get to class. This is a cross section of a leaf. And so what we've got down here are the stomata, which is where all of the carbon dioxide is going to come in. And then you can see there's something here called xylem, which is transporting our water. So we're going into this leaf, and now you can see we have our chloroplasts, which are here. This is just a plant cell, which you're seeing the vacuole and the nucleus and all kinds of good stuff. And then we're going to look at one chloroplast. So this is our chloroplast. Remember, big green M&M, right? Inside we have lots of thylakoid discs, which is what I said were like mini M&Ms. And it is the thylakoid membrane that's really important. And so the thylakoid membrane is where we're doing the light reaction. So when we talked about the story of Electra, the location of that was thylakoid membrane. When we complete the dark reaction, which is the Calvin cycle, that's going to take place out here in the stroma, which is just the fluid outside of all the thylakoids. So now going in a little bit further.
Here you are looking at a close-up of the thylakoid inner membrane, showing 5 specific points of interest on the electron transport chain. Click on any one of them for more information.
Okay, so this is the electron transport chain, which is inside the thylakoid membrane. So this is the stroma, which would be outside of the thylakoid disc, and this is the inside of the thylakoid disc. What you're going to see in a second when I start the little movie up is that a photon of light, so some sunlight, is going to hit our photosystem, which is where our pigment is. It's going to excite an electron, and that electron is going to move through the electron transport chain. We're going to use it to make some ATP, and then, oh, sorry, hold on.